destroyed my marriage on what was supposed to be our celebration, and everyone thinks they know why I did it. But the version spreading through our friend group leaves out the part that makes it so much worse. My husband packed his bags and vanished from our resort suite after seeing messages I never intended for him to find, and I don't blame him for running, but nobody understands that the affair wasn't even the worst betrayal. The shame is suffocating, but it's the fear that keeps me awake at night, the terror that when the full story comes out I won't just lose my husband, I'll lose the version of myself I've spent years convincing everyone I am. People are calling me selfish, impulsive, a cheater who threw away something good for cheap thrills. They're not wrong, but they're missing the calculated cruelty underneath, the deliberate choices I made that turned one mistake into systematic destruction. I'm going to walk you through exactly how I dismantled my own life, step by horrible step, because there's a piece of this puzzle that'll make you understand why I can't just apologize and move on. And when I get to that part, the thing I've only admitted to one person, you'll see why my husband's silence might actually be mercy. 6 months ago, Marcus and I were planning our 5th anniversary trip with the kind of enthusiasm that made our friends jealous. We'd weathered a rough patch the previous year when his mother's illness consumed all our energy, and we'd promised ourselves this Cabo getaway would be our reset. I remember sitting at our kitchen island scrolling through resort photos while Marcus made his terrible coffee, feeling genuinely excited about reconnecting. "This one has the infinity pool overlooking the beach," I said, turning my laptop toward him. "Book it," he said without hesitation, kissing my temple. "Whatever makes you happy." That phrase, "whatever makes you happy," had become his default during the stressful months of hospital visits and funeral arrangements. At first, it felt supportive. Later, it started feeling like abdication, like he'd stopped caring enough to have preferences. I knew that was unfair even as I thought it. The man had just lost his mother. But resentment doesn't care about fairness, and mine had been building quietly, accumulating in places I didn't examine too closely. The trip was booked for late September. In June, my company hired Ethan for our marketing team. I noticed him immediately, everyone did. He had that specific charisma that fills rooms, the kind of confidence I'd lost somewhere between Marcus's grief and my own stagnation. Ethan asked questions in meetings that made people feel clever when they answered. He remembered details about coworkers' lives. He made sustained eye contact that felt flattering rather than aggressive. Looking back, I can identify the exact moment I made the first dangerous choice. I volunteered to collaborate on his orientation project. "I could show you our campaign archive," I offered after a team meeting, my voice brighter than necessary. "Help you get up to speed." Marcus noticed the shift in my energy when I came home that evening, humming while I made dinner. "Good day?" he asked, looking up from his laptop with a tired smile. "Just nice to have some fresh energy on the team," I said, which was true but incomplete. That night I stayed up an extra hour organizing files for Ethan's orientation, telling myself it was just professional thoroughness. I picked a specific blouse for work the next morning and told myself it was coincidence. These small lies I told myself were the foundation for everything that followed. The collaboration stretched from days into weeks. Ethan and I developed an easy rapport, the kind of workplace connection that lives in the gray area between professional and personal. We got coffee before meetings. We shared playlists. We stayed late working on presentations, ordering takeout to my desk, laughing over inside jokes that had nothing to do with Marcus or my real life. "Your husband doesn't mind you working such long hours?" Ethan asked one evening in July, his tone carefully neutral. "He's been distracted lately," I said, which was both true and a grotesque minimization of a man processing profound grief. "Work is honestly a nice escape." Ethan nodded sympathetically, and I felt a thrill at being understood that I should have recognized as dangerous. But here's what I knew even then, what I actively ignored. Marcus had started therapy to process his mother's death. He'd asked me to join him for a few sessions. I declined, claiming work was too busy, when really I was protecting my growing emotional investment in someone else. I was choosing the dopamine hit of Ethan's attention over the harder work of supporting my husband through trauma. By August, I was checking my phone compulsively for Ethan's messages. I bought new work clothes I told myself were for confidence but wore on days I knew I'd see him. I found reasons to touch his arm during conversations, brief contacts that felt electric and wrong in equal measure. Marcus planned a weekend away before our big anniversary trip, just a quick getaway to the coast to practice relaxing together, he said. I agreed enthusiastically while secretly resenting the interruption to my work schedule, to my proximity to Ethan. The beach weekend was strained. Marcus tried so hard, planning my favorite restaurants, suggesting long walks, attempting to reconnect physically in ways that felt forced after months of grief-dampened intimacy. I participated but remained half-present, checking work emails obsessively. "You seem somewhere else," Marcus said on our last morning, watching me scroll through my phone over breakfast. Just some project stress, I lied. I'll disconnect better on the big trip. He nodded, wanting to believe me, and I let him. What I didn't tell him, I'd been texting Ethan throughout the weekend. Nothing explicitly inappropriate yet, but constant communication that had nothing to do with work. Complaints about feeling disconnected, seeking validation, building intimacy through shared understanding of each other's internal lives. When we returned home, Ethan messaged, "Missed our coffee talks. How was your weekend?" I responded, "Long, good to be back." Then added, "Missed them too." That acknowledgement of mutual missing shifted something. We both knew it. The week before my anniversary trip, Ethan and I worked late on a presentation. The office emptied around us until we were alone on our floor, the intimacy of shared space and lowered inhibitions. "Can I say something potentially inappropriate?" Ethan asked around 9 p.m., closing his laptop. My heart hammered. "Okay. I think you're incredibly talented, and I don't think you're appreciated the way you should be." It was a careful statement, designed to apply to work while opening doors to other interpretations. I knew this intellectually, recognized the manipulation, and chose to lean into it anyway. "That means a lot," I said, "especially from someone whose opinion I respect." We held eye contact too long. Nothing physical happened, but we crossed a line into acknowledged mutual attraction, and I drove home buzzing with feelings I'd been starving for: being seen, being wanted, being something other than a supporting character in someone else's grief narrative. Marcus had cooked dinner. He'd set candles on the table. He was trying so hard to rebuild what his depression had eroded, and I felt nothing but impatience to get back to my phone, back to the messages that made me feel alive. "I was thinking," Marcus said over pasta, "maybe we make a pact for Cabo, no phones except for emergencies, really disconnect and focus on us." Panic flared in my chest. "That seems extreme. What if work needs something? You have a deputy director. The world won't end if you're unreachable for 5 days." I agreed superficially while immediately planning how I'd keep my phone accessible. I was already prioritizing my connection to Ethan over my husband's reasonable request for our anniversary. That night, Ethan sent, "Wish I had someone to take me to Cabo." I stared at that message for 20 minutes before responding, "Wish it was a different kind of trip." His reply came immediately, "What kind?" I deleted 4 different responses before settling on the kind where I didn't have to pretend to be someone I'm not. It was the first explicitly disloyal thing I'd said about my marriage. The first time I'd positioned Marcus as an obligation rather than a partner. I felt sick typing it and hit send anyway. Ethan's response, "You deserve to be yourself, whoever that is." I took screenshots of our conversation, which should have been a warning sign. I was already creating evidence of something I knew was wrong. I fell asleep reading our message thread instead of joining Marcus in bed, and when he found me on the couch at midnight, I claimed I'd dozed off working. The lying had become reflexive. The day before we left for Cabo, Ethan asked me to lunch. We went to a wine bar, inappropriate for a Wednesday afternoon, and he ordered us a bottle. "To you figuring out what you want," he toasted. I clinked his glass, already tipsy on attention and wine, and the recklessness of approaching a point of no return. "I keep thinking about alternative timelines," I said, the wine loosening my tongue. "Versions where I made different choices earlier." "It's never too late to choose differently," Ethan said, his hand covering mine on the table. I should have pulled away. Instead, I turned my palm up, lacing our fingers together in full view of anyone who might know Marcus, might recognize me. The public nature of it made it more real, more dangerous. "I'm going away for 5 days," I said. "I know." "I'll miss you," I admitted, the words both thrilling and nauseating. "Then come back changed," he said. "Come back ready to choose what you actually want." We kissed in the parking lot, and it was everything a first kiss with someone forbidden is supposed to be: desperate and guilty and electrifying. I drove home with my heart racing, my lipstick smudged, carrying the physical evidence of my betrayal. Marcus was packing when I arrived, carefully folding his swim trunks, humming something tuneless. He looked up with such genuine happiness to see me that I nearly confessed everything right then. "There's my beautiful wife," he said, crossing the room to kiss me. 5 more hours until we leave." I kissed him back, tasting Ethan on my own mouth, and said nothing. That night I packed my suitcase while Marcus slept. I included the phone charger despite his no phones request. I brought the lingerie I'd bought specifically thinking of Ethan, not Marcus. I was actively preparing to betray my husband while he snored softly, trusting me completely. And here's the part I haven't admitted to anyone except my therapist: I texted Ethan from the bathroom at 2 a.m. "I don't want to go." His response came within minutes: "Then don't. I can't just cancel our anniversary trip." "Why not? If it's not what you want, it's already ruined. You're just going through motions." "It's more complicated than that. It doesn't have to be. Choose yourself for once." I read that message standing in my bathroom at 2:30 in the morning, my husband sleeping peacefully down the hall, our packed bags by the door, and I made a decision that would detonate everything. "I'll keep my phone on," I typed. "Don't go silent on me." Never, he promised. I'll be thinking about you every day. I should have stopped there, but the recklessness, the thrill, the self-destructive momentum carried me forward. Tell me what you'd do if I was there with you instead, I wrote. And he did, in explicit detail. And I responded in kind, creating a detailed sexual fantasy with another man while my husband slept 15 feet away on the night before our anniversary trip. The messages went on for an hour. I saved them all. I reread them in bed next to Marcus, feeling powerful and desired and completely disconnected from consequences. When my alarm went off 4 hours later, I woke up groggy and disoriented, my phone still clutched in my hand under the pillow. Marcus was already up, making coffee, excited about our trip. I showered away the physical evidence of my late-night conversation and told myself I'd cool things with Ethan once I had distance, once I got perspective. I was already negotiating with myself, already planning to maintain the affair rather than end it. The flight to Cabo was smooth. Marcus held my hand during takeoff, talked enthusiastically about the restaurants he'd researched, showed me the couple's massage he'd booked for our actual anniversary day. He'd planned everything so carefully, invested so much hope in this trip's healing power. I smiled and nodded and texted Ethan from the airplane bathroom, landed. This already feels like a mistake. The resort was stunning, all white stone and turquoise water and private balconies overlooking the ocean. Our room had the infinity pool I'd chosen, flower petals on the bed, champagne waiting. Marcus tipped the bellhop generously and pulled me onto the balcony. To us, he said, raising his champagne flute. To remembering why we're good together. I drank, already composing the message I'd send Ethan describing the sunset, the champagne, the hollowness of going through romantic motions without feeling. That first night, Marcus was attentive and sweet and trying so hard to be present. We had dinner at the resort's best restaurant. We walked the beach. We made love with an intensity that felt like him trying to prove something, to reclaim something he sensed slipping away. I was physically present and emotionally elsewhere. While he slept, satisfied that we'd made progress, I messaged Ethan for 2 hours, describing my day in ways that positioned every romantic gesture as performance, every kindness as obligation. Ethan responded with validation and flirtation and the promise of understanding. He sent photos of himself at his apartment. I sent photos of the sunset from our balcony, carefully cropped to exclude Marcus. Wish you were watching this with me, I wrote. Soon, he replied, and the presumption in that word that we had a future, that I'd leave my marriage, should have alarmed me. Instead, it thrilled me. The second day, Marcus suggested we try surfing lessons. I agreed while texting Ethan that I'd be unavailable for a few hours. The instructor was patient and enthusiastic, and Marcus was terrible at surfing, laughing at himself with the self-deprecation I'd once found charming and now found grating. I think I'm too old for new sports, he joked, wiping salt water from his eyes. You're not old, you're just not trying hard enough, I said, and heard the cruelty in my voice too late to soften it. His face fell. I'm trying hard enough at the things that matter, he said quietly. I knew what he meant. He was trying hard at us, at repairing our connection, at being present despite his grief. And I was punishing him for the effort. Back in our room, I claimed exhaustion and napped while Marcus explored the resort alone. I spent the time messaging Ethan, who was at work dealing with a crisis I'd normally have been involved in solving. Miss having you here, he wrote. Office isn't the same. 4 more days, I responded. Then back to reality. What's real is what you feel, not where you're physically located. These pseudo-philosophical text messages felt profound in the moment, but were actually just manipulation wrapped in intimacy. I was too invested to see it. That evening, Marcus wanted to try the resort's famous tequila bar. I went reluctantly, keeping my phone in my lap under the table, checking it compulsively. Marcus noticed. You promised to disconnect, he said, his voice tight. I am disconnected, I'm just checking that work isn't imploding. On our anniversary trip. You know how my team is, they panic without guidance. It was a lie, my deputy was competent, nobody had actually contacted me about work. I was checking for messages from Ethan, and Marcus knew it even if he couldn't articulate what he was sensing. Are we okay? He asked suddenly, his hand covering mine. Really okay. Because sometimes I feel like I'm losing you and I don't know how to stop it. This was my moment. This was the opening to confess, to course correct, to choose my marriage over a fantasy. Marcus was handing me an opportunity to be honest, and I could see in his eyes how much courage it took to ask. We're fine, I said, pulling my hand away to grab my drink. You're being paranoid. I watched him absorb that dismissal, watched him decide to believe me because the alternative was too painful. I'd gaslighted him when he was asking the right questions, and I felt powerful doing it. We drank too much that night. Back in the room, Marcus initiated sex that felt different, almost desperate, like he was trying to physically hold onto something slipping away. I participated mechanically, imagining Ethan, mentally comparing, emotionally checked out. Afterward, Marcus fell asleep quickly, drunk and exhausted. I waited until his breathing evened out, then grabbed my phone from the safe where I'd hidden it. 20 messages from Ethan. Photos, provocative questions, explicit descriptions of what he wanted to do when I returned. I read them all, aroused and guilty and high on the danger of it. Then I made my worst decision, yet worse even than the affair itself, though I didn't fully